Before we continue, a navigation and safety note. A lot of what's underwater here is just barely so, as we can see here at low tide. At high tide, when the river level is 3 to 4 feet higher, this stick-up will be just under the surface, and it'll put the bite on your lower unit. Make sure you pick up the available navigation charts and tide tables, and unless you're familiar with the river, stay in the main channel when motoring at speed between the red and the green marker buoys. And need we remind you that it's big water. Nearly 100 miles of bass fishery from around West Point north to the Federal Dam at Troy. Watch out for the big boats and barges. They leave a hell of a wake. Let's begin our bass fishing day in the air and get an overview of the primary pattern anywhere. It's especially important on the Hudson, where we make it a point to fish points. From above, Hudson River points show up like this. On the map, they show up like this. They look more like rectangles, sort of squared off points. In real life, we've got a choice of what are really mostly old man-made jetties. They're anywhere from 10 to 20 to even 50 yards wide. The most obvious of these man-made jetties are located at the mouths of the major feeder creeks, Wappingers, Esopus, Roundout, and Catskill creeks. And these points will hold bass in bunches sometimes. Check them out. But for starters, let's choose a real, for sure, Hudson River squared-off point. This one's the perfect example because it's got all the classic goodies. By our definition, it's a point with riprap and wood. It's next to a deep-water channel, downstream from a large, weedy bay. This point's got bass.
All right. Bravo. Good fish. Mm-hmm. Woo! Nice one. That's your basic Ungawa bass. That's a nice fish. Whoa!
Very good fish. And hook right on the bony part.
I'm getting the feeling I ought to be switching to a jig.
Yeah, that's a nice fish.
Oh yeah.
Running about 3 pounds, maybe a little better. And put him back.
Let him grow older.
In one sense, it's as simple as that. Of course, if that were it, we could just stop the tape right here and go fishing. But before you head out the door, let's check out some pertinent questions that come to mind. The most important when fishing tidal water has to do with the tide. That is, understanding the cyclical water level and current fluctuations in terms of bait location. You see, twice each day the banks are flooded at high tide. And again, twice each day, the shoreline structure is exposed at low tide, a rise and fall of some 3 to 5 feet, as you can see. So what you're casting toward right now will be underwater structure and cover just 6 hours later. Let's look at the map again, at the type of point we're looking for and why it's a bass factory. The productive vital statistics as you move up on a Hudson River point. 1, it's a man-made point. It's got riprap, wood pilings, and assorted other junk, dating back to the public works projects of the 1930s and even earlier. 2, the point is located next to deep water, that is, right along a channel. And perhaps most important, as you can see in the background, it's adjacent to a shallow, preferably weedy flat, or bay, or cove, if you will. And because of what's uncovered, dead low tide is an excellent time to look over points.
Now we're actually past the point of low tide here, but because of the northerly wind and it's really blowing, we still have a little bit of dropping going on here, don't we?
Well, it's just about dead low now. It's an inordinately low tide.
And there's, I guess what I'm really talking about then is if it's not dropping, there's certainly a little bit of a current.
There's a little bit of current, yeah.
Which will maintain
more surface.
Will that maintain fish on the feed?
It may just maintain the fish here.
Right.
Any fish that we're up here feeding.
What do you got? What do you got?
Small bass.
Oh, a small bass.
That's legal.
Don't you just love that jig?
No, yeah, they're hitting it pretty good.
Now, show me how to catch one.
What are you throwing now?
A DB3.
Oh. You know, I always say when somebody's catching fish on a lure, that my mama didn't raise no dumb children. Because I switched to that lure.
Uh-huh.
Your mama, obviously.
Woo! Mm-mm. Good fish. Whoa! Michael, you're doing a number here. Another 3-pounder. I could only stand and applaud the master.
Yeah, but I continue with the crankbait. Call me stubborn, call me mule-headed. Hey, call me a fisherman. Actually, there's a number of legitimate reasons to fish it. For me, on that day, it was the camera. But on any particular given day, it's a terrific fish locator, along with a spinnerbait. It lets you cover water quickly and thoroughly. Then, if the fish just aren't aggressive, you switch to a jump bait, pig and jig, or worm. However, since Mike has issued the challenge, and, well, I really am stubborn and mule-headed, and through perseverance, it took a whole lot longer than it shows here. I got one. A whole lot longer.
Got one. I don't know. Is that a fish? Yeah. Whoa. Whoa. I tell you, that's a good fish. Whoa, Jesus. Whoa.
Nice fish. That's better than 3 pounds.
Oh. Happiness is a warm bass. Holy moly. Look at that belly. Woo. That is a nice bass.